what's up? Hello, my name is Emma, and today I'm going to be talking about some books that I devoured. I feel like one of the most universally beloved experiences of readers is to be so invested in a book where it's all you can think about and you finish it immensely quickly, sometimes even in one sitting. So today I'd like to share some of these memorable books that I finished really quickly because I just could not stop voraciously reading. Today's video contains a paid promotion with Disney Book Group for the release of I Devoured Grey by Christine Lynn Herman, which came out on April 2nd. In the last few months, I Devoured Grey has become extremely hyped to the point where I feel like I cannot scroll on my Twitter feed without having people rave about this book. This book follows three main characters. The first is named Violet, who has moved to a town called Four Paths after the death of her sister and discovers that she's a part of one of the revered founding families. Our second main character's name is Justin, and he is a part of a family that for generations has protected Four Paths from this phenomenon called the Grey, which holds a monster. But unfortunately, Justin hasn't inherited his family's powers, but he still feels like he has a duty to protect. Our third main character is Harper, who is a girl that lost her hand as a result of being stranded in the Grey, and she has sworn revenge on Justin, who abandoned her. Essentially, Violet accidentally releases the monster in the Grey, and the three of them have to band together to protect Four Paths. I've also heard this book has some LGBTQ+ rep, as the main character is bisexual, which is super exciting, so I am very interested in reading The Devoured Grey. I definitely think it's one that will live up to the hype for me, so if you want to check it out, it's in stores now. One more additional note before we jump in. I really want to talk mostly about my experiences with these books because this is a video about why they're significant to me, but if you want to see my reviews and find out more about my specific thoughts about the books, I'll link any kind of Goodreads review or video review I have for them in the description. So I'm actually going to be doing this video in chronological order, starting with the very first few books I really remember devouring, and that begins with Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince by J.K. Rowling. Half-Blood Prince is really significant to me because I feel like this is the first book where I really joined the Harry Potter fandom. I had read the first few Harry Potter books quite a few times before Half-Blood Prince came out, but I had always sort of read them in solitude. I wasn't involved in any online communities or anything, and Half-Blood Prince was actually the first Harry Potter book that I got like as it came out. I got like the hardcover first edition for the first time, so that was really exciting for me. And it's even more special to me because I read this book in 2 days. Half-Blood Prince is a hefty book. It is over 600 pages, and as like a 10-11-year-old, it was really big for me to get that much done in such a short period of time, so I was very proud of myself. But I have even more reasons why Half-Blood Prince is really exciting because I also read it on a camping trip with my family. Going camping was a huge part of my life as a child. I went almost every summer, and the year of Half-Blood Prince, I believe 2005, it was the first year that we actually stayed in a cabin, and it was just a really cool experience. I'm getting like overwhelmed because this is just like such a fond memory for me, but I remember reading in my bedroom at the cabin. I remember reading up on the loft, which I thought was like the coolest thing in the world. I would read by the pool. I would read by the campfire. I even remember like reading while walking to the pond to go fishing and stuff. And so it was just such like an immense time filled with Harry Potter and all of this new content, and it was really exciting. And despite all those really wonderful, vibrant memories I have of reading Half-Blood Prince, I actually got spoiled before I even started the book. Essentially, before I got Half-Blood Prince, I saw a video online of these two boys who were driving in a car down the line of people waiting to get the book at midnight, and they were spoiling the big death at the end.
Kill.
I knew it was gonna happen going into it, but it did not affect my enjoyment of the story at all. I love Harry Potter, and I have so many endless memories attached to it, and this was definitely like the first book I really significantly remember like this. The next book I devoured is one I'm sure you all can expect, and that is City of Heavenly Fire by Cassandra Clare. Many of you know I discovered the Mortal Instruments series during a really tough time in my life, and the months leading up to the release of City of Heavenly Fire were full of some some of the most exciting and wonderful moments of that entire year for me. I actually got City of Heavenly Fire the day before release date. Like, Amazon shipped them early and it was such a surprise to get it the day before it released. So I remember starting it the night before the book officially released, and I only got a little bit of the way through, but the next day is really when the devouring of this book began. This is so ridiculous, but I had actually convinced my mom to allow me to stay home from high school the day City of Heavenly Fire released so I could just read all day, because she really understood how much these books meant to me. So I took off school, spent the whole day reading. It was fantastic. I finished this massive book in 8 hours. If that isn't the definition of devouring a book, I don't know what is. But do you want to know what's even more ridiculous about my experience reading City of Heavenly Fire? So I had actually developed a really wonderful relationship with the ceramics teacher at my school. I never actually took ceramics, but I just got to know this teacher, and she allowed me to come in on my off periods to make whatever I wanted out of clay with her help. So my Mortal Instruments obsessed self, of course, had to make a mortal cup. I made this entire thing myself out of clay, painted it. It is just one of my most prized possessions. At the time City of Heavenly Fire was coming out, I was in the process of like finishing carving it and getting ready to fire it. So the day I took off school in order to read City of Heavenly Fire, I literally went into school to work on my mortal cup and then went home to finish City of Heavenly Fire. I literally walked into my English class that like I'm supposed to be in at this time and was like, hey, I'm taking school off today to read a book. It was so dumb. Why didn't I do that? So yeah, City of Heavenly Fire was just a day full of the Mortal Instruments. I read the entire book and I cried and I laughed and it was fantastic. I worked on my replica Mortal Cup and it was just one of the greatest experiences I think I've ever had as a reader. Next up on my list is actually a series I devoured, and that is Vampire Academy by Rochelle Mead. So I first read Vampire Academy in like May of 2015 because I was getting ready to meet Rochelle Mead at BookCon for the first time, so I knew I wanted to read one of her books. So I read Vampire Academy and loved it, but I didn't actually pick up the rest of the series right away. I picked up book 2 probably sometime in July, and from there is when the obsession began. I read the last 5 books in the Vampire Academy series in like less than 2 weeks, which I think is really impressive. I refused to put these books down. I remember I was going to the beach like so often that summer, and like all I did was just fly through the series, and it just filled me with so much joy. Vampire Academy is definitely the first book series I really like fell head over heels in love with since starting the Mortal Instruments in 2014. So it was just an exhilarating time filled with lots of gushing and tension and just losing my mind with fangirlness. I started sort of like live Snapchatting my reactions to this series because it was literally all I could think about or talk about. So earlier today as I was filming, my mom came home and suddenly got very ill, so I had to pause filming and take care of her, and I just sort of forgot that I didn't finish talking about Vampire Academy, so I'm gonna finish that up now and then we'll return to the rest of the video. So my final memorable experience reading Vampire Academy happened when I was so close to finishing the final book. I definitely had like less than 100 pages left, but I had to get into the shower, and as I was like washing my hair, I was just thinking about the Bloodline series, which is like the spin-off to Vampire Academy. And so earlier that day, I had read the synopsis of Bloodlines because I was thinking of maybe jumping right into the spin-off series because I was just in such a Vampire Academy mode. And so as I'm in the shower, I just start thinking about the Bloodline synopsis, and I'm starting to make a few connections, and just all of a sudden, like, I have this massive prediction for how the last book is going to end to set up for the spin-off series. And I was so consumed with this theory and this need to know if I was correct that I literally got out of the shower, shampoo still in my hair. I sat in my towel dripping wet and finished the last book just because I like could not pause in that moment.
So I'm just gonna chill here in my towel, read this book with my hair half washed, and figure out if I'm right or not. I think I've reached my breaking point.
point. So yeah, Vampire Academy was just so special to me, and the 2 weeks I just spent completely enthralled with the world made it a really memorable experience. The next book on my list of books I devoured is 13 Reasons Why by J. Asher. Now hold on, I understand this is a very polarizing book. I've gone through a long transformation in my thoughts about 13 Reasons Why, as you'll hear in a minute. I really loved it when I first read it, but through a lot of further reflection, I discovered a lot more issues that I take with it, and I actually unhauled my copies of it, and I wouldn't consider myself to be a fan of the book anymore. But this isn't a video on books I think that are perfect or that I'd highly recommend. It's about books that I devoured, and 13 Reasons Why absolutely fits that criteria. I only became interested in 13 Reasons Why when the TV show first came out. That weekend everyone was talking about it, and I knew I wanted to watch it, but of course the book lover I am had to read the book first. I decided to listen to the audiobook because I knew that the whole premise of 13 Reasons Why is that it's a girl telling her story through tapes that the main character is listening to, so I thought it would be a really cool format. I distinctly remember I started the audiobook to 13 Reasons Why on a Tuesday morning, and even though Tuesdays were my absolute busiest day during the semester, I did not stop moving. I ended up listening to the whole audiobook in one day. I listened to my audiobook on the way to school. On my break from school, I went to the mall and I listened to the audiobook as I was shopping, and then I drove to therapy and was listening to the audiobook and listened to it all the way home. And it was just my entire day was consumed by the story I was so invested in. I'm not gonna apologize for saying that I think that 13 Reasons Why has a lot of good in it, because I also think it has a lot of bad, and especially with some of the things I've heard about the author in the last few years, I'm just not personally a fan of the book anymore, but I can acknowledge that I have really significant, wonderful memories attached to my time reading it, and I can kind of view those two things separately, which is why I still look back on it with a lot of fondness. And so the last book I'm going to be talking about is a recent fave of mine, and I'm sure you guys can guess what it is, but I am talking about Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is absolutely one of the most remarkable novels I've ever read, and it made for such an intoxicating read. This is another book in which I listened to the audio version because it is a full cast recording, so every single character in the book has their own actor. And because this book is told through an oral history, meaning that it is essentially all dialogue pieced together from different interviews, it was immensely fast to read. I already knew this book was going to steal my heart before I started it, but I listened to the audiobook for the first time in 2 days, and then I immediately started it over and finished it in another 2 days. So I read this book twice in 4 days. I was just looking for absolutely every opportunity to listen to this book because I just didn't want to be apart from it. Ever since I finished it, it has been taking all of my will to not pick it up again because it is just a story that I feel like I will never get sick of. It is incredible and life-changing, and I would highly recommend it if you have not read it. So that concludes my video on books that I devoured. Do not forget that The Devouring Gray is in stores now. I'm excited to read it, and I hope you are as well. In the comments below, definitely let me know any of your thoughts on the books that I mentioned, because I'm pretty confident that at least a few of these are ones that you guys might have devoured as well, and any other books that you just could not put down once you started reading. But that is it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you soon for a new one. Bye!